Welcome, beloveds. Thank you for joining us for another episode of So Many Ways to Heal as we explore resources in the realm of healing and wellness by interviewing experts in their field. I'm Daphne, and I'm really excited to be your guide as we explore ways of healing the body, the mind, and the soul to find wholeness, health, vitality, and to reveal your authentic self. Be sure to like and subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss an episode. And share this video with your soul tribe as we spread healing through the world. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. Remember, the best healing tools are love and gratitude. So I'm sending my love and gratitude to you. Welcome, Jack. Thanks for having us sit down with me today.
Yeah. Glad to be here, spend time with you, and then, things that you and I both love to talk about, which is like spirituality, healing, what's going on in the world today, things like that.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like your work has such a unique take on healing. Mm-hmm. It's really unique. Do you want to tell the audience about what Family Constellations is?
Sure, yeah. So I lead Family Constellation work, and Family Constellations are a way at looking at the energetic patterns that we carry in our bodies, that we go through life with, that we've actually inherited from our lineage. So in addition to our genetics, in addition to like what happens to us in childhood, there's another big aspect of what we are and how we are in life that's kind of missing from the story, and that's that we inherit, these patterns. We inherit how mom and dad felt about aggression. We inherit perhaps depression, if there's depression in the lineage, or a lifeness, or addiction, tendencies to addictions. Mm-hmm. So in addition to, coming in as you and I, as infants and things like that, we inherit these energies that live in mom and dad, and even farther back in grandma and grandpa. And sometimes we won't even know why we're struggling with a certain issue. Mm-hmm. So Family Constellation work is a group process that allows us to work with the energies that we have lived with our entire lives and actually create really profound healing and shifts at that level, mm-hmm. at the energetic level of us as energetic beings, right? Yeah, we're a physical form, but, break it all down, we're energy.
I remember you once saying that we come in as babies and there's this whole conversation about nature versus nurture. And of course, nurture has a huge aspect of who we become, but our nature is not just who we are. So much of our nature is wrapped up into these family lineages who what traumas or dramas happened in, your family lineage way back when that have kind of seeped through. And, for me, I kind of think about generations after war, how there's Holocaust survivors whose grandchildren still have, so much active remnants of it. And we've had wars for, since millennia. So just thinking about how all of those have kind of weaved their way into how the beliefs that we make up about who we are and how the world is, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you work with you kind of said that you work with groups. What does that mean that you work with groups?
Well, constellation work can be done one-on-one, family constellations, or it can be done as a group process.
Yeah, what does that mean?
I particularly work with it as a group process, meaning we're able to take on roles. It's almost like role playing. And so if you have a particular aspect of a challenge, a life challenge that you want to look at, we bring a group together, and the people in the group will take on roles relevant to your family, relevant to, let's say, if depression or something like that. And someone could take on the role of depression in your family. And through this role playing, we're able to actually very deeply learn what is going on within you and also within your lineage. Like the mystery of the unresolved trauma, the stuff that happened to grandma or the stuff that happened to grandpa. And from that place, we're able to really shift the energies that have been living with us since day one. You know, almost like what we came in with. You know, this idea that we're not a clean slate.
Right.
Right. You and I have talked about too that, well, socially and structurally and the medical model, it's like we're kind of a clean slate, and then things happen to us in childhood, and these things impact us, and we struggle in life because of that. It's such a limited view. We have to look at energetically past lives. We have to look at energetically ancestral inheritance. I would say that the childhood behavior that we grew up with is probably 30-40% of what we are, if I was to make up a number. But if we include these other elements, we understand, for one, why it's so hard to heal just from using this model of my mind and my childhood. Right? We have to account for traumatic past lives that we carry the energetic imprint from. Oh, no wonder I'm always afraid of my brother. In a past life, a brother killed me. And that has a strong correlation to this life. We'll have past lives, but we have certain past lives that have more correlation to this lifetime. Right? So super relevant to add a much bigger range of what we are as energetic beings than just what we grew up with in childhood. Yeah.
I feel like it makes so much sense. I mean, you hear stories of people that never have a reason to be scared of water, and they're just terrified of like open bodies of water, and there's no, they don't know anybody that died in it. They don't have any story to go with it, but they just have this like deep-seated fear of something for no reason, and that's probably connected to it, right?
Well, what's funny that you brought that up, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this previously, but I've always had fear of water, ocean.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I went back, and through the process, we were able to look and see, and what showed up was that there was a lifetime where I was killed, where someone killed me. It was sort of a love triangle, and someone killed me that lifetime in the ocean, and I was eaten or something like that. And so, but knowing that, and then having the energetic imprint of that lifetime removed, now here I'm, a couple blocks from the beach down here in Mexico. So, water has really become a friend.
So, for the audience that doesn't actually know anything about family constellations, like how would you set up a constellation? Can you walk us through an example or?
Sure. There was an interesting, I'm going to go a slightly different direction. I thought this was really lovely. There are two ways that constellations help and support and heal. One is we get sort of a soul level picture of why this family, what happened in this family. Not the psychological, not like I was just kind of dumped here and it's horrible. But the soul level look, which is a more love-based look, like, oh, this was the perfect family for my soul growth. And then the other way that constellations help are these energetic shifts, right? It simply impacts the energy that we have lived with in our body day in and day out. So one day I'm afraid of water, do the process, realize where it comes from, do the energetic resolving of that lifetime and the trauma, energetic trauma, if you will, to, oh my gosh, I can go swimming in the ocean and I feel held by that energy. It's really lovely. So I was doing a constellation for a client many, many years ago, back when I was a newbie facilitator starting out. And broken connection with mom, right? So many people, that's a huge issue for us. And what the energetics of the process showed, and her story was, her mental story, mom doesn't love me. Mom doesn't love me. She's not there for me. She doesn't care. She keeps a distance from us, from me, and from the other kids. And so she's carried this story her entire life. And you imagine going into romantic relationships And what you carry energetically with you is, my mother doesn't love me. I mean, are you ever going to be able to really let love in? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Super blocked. Mm-hmm. Super blocked. So we do the energetic process for her when people take on the role. Someone takes on the role of her mother, someone takes on the role of her, and other players in this constellation, in the energetics of this process. And we're working with the morphogenetic field. So there's
Wait, what is that?
The morphogenetic field is, these are just my terms, I would say what every person with psychic intuitive gifts taps into to access greater knowledge and wisdom than we have with just our mind. Okay. Right, very simply, that there's a source of information, it's kind of like seen outside the matrix for a minute. And so if someone goes to a psychic, we could just get information of things that there's no way our logical mind knows, but from the other side, it's very clear. It's like,
But haven't science disproven psychics so many times?
I think there's definitely an attempt to discredit this level of spiritual of what we are.
Right.
For sure. I don't believe it, my own experience, and I'm sure, I know you don't either, but yeah. So
just playing the devil's
advocate. Exactly. So with this client, people take on different roles, and the person takes on the mom role. And again, this is a model. The psychotherapeutic model is a bit of it's a wound-based model. Yeah. We're wounded, and this is how the wound is out picturing, and we have to heal the wound. But constellation work is a love-based model. And the premise
Wait, I just want to take that in. That is such a unique distinction.
Yeah.
It's a love-based model.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And there's just so few, I think all healings that actually start with that basis are probably really good. And it's not, you don't see that very often in traditional medicine.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thought. Let's just take, for example, depression.
Okay.
So in constellation work, like a very common pattern is we carry the emotions of the lineage. And perhaps the emotions for the women in the lineage is depression. And a psychotherapeutic model is basically going to say, it's your wounds, you need to be happier, you need to stop, it's your childhood imprint, and now you're depressed also, my client. From a love-based perspective, it's very different, right? A love-based model is like, your mother carries the pain from her mother, so grandma's pain. Mom carries it, she's depressed. And so you as a daughter in this family system come in, and to be in accordance with mom, in other words, love is my cat, Gato, jumping up there. To be in accordance with love, you carry it also. You're like, how can I live a prosperous, fruitful, happy life when both grandma and mom suffered so much? So I'm going to join them. I'm going to join them in the grief that they carry, right? So, and really the essence of that from a soul level is not dysfunction. It's because we love them so much. It's because we love them so much we can't leave them behind. We want to honor how painful their lives were. So, very, very different.
I feel like I see a lot that children have a reaction that's kind of binary to response to however their parents are. So if for instance, if their parents are Republican, then they'll have two kids that are Republican and one that's a staunch Democrat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or if mother's depressed, one kid will be depressed and the other one will just be happy-go-lucky, light and free.
Yeah.
It seems to me that with some of those pieces, they still are responding to the same frequency, but in different ways. Is that true? Or do you think, from your perspective, that they are their life, this lifetime has more connections to this particular lineage, and this other soul doesn't have as strong a ties to that lineage.
Here's what I've seen in family constellation work.
Yeah.
The basic premise is that whatever's missing in our lineage, the energetic imprint of that gets passed down. And someone will, in the work, will call carry it.
So something that's missing in the lineage, like to become whole, like whatever's missing to be whole?
Yeah, I think of it as a noun.
Okay.
I think of it as a noun. A person, a place, or a thing. And by a thing, I mean traumatic events. We were talking about the Holocaust. Jewish lineage, many of the people that remained in Europe were killed during the Holocaust. And the way many Jewish lineages, and half Jewish myself, coped with that trauma was to never talk about it. To never talk about it. We don't talk about what happened to the uncles and the grandmother, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, when things aren't talked about, when things aren't integrated, when things aren't felt and grieved, what would have become a strength, a source of resilience, now becomes buried and becomes a source of trauma. And then the imprint of that is passed down. So what was missing in the lineage was attunement, presence to a traumatic incident. And so then it gets passed down, and the kids are depressed. There's no vitality, or they're rageful because they're trying to fight off the deaths that haven't been felt energetically. And so they're trying to stay. I remember that from one constellation where we set it up, and the whole family was like laying on the carpet, and little Johnny was there, angry. But he's like, if I don't have this anger, I'm going to be laying down with the rest of them. Right? So it's amazing what that intelligence can show us. So whatever's missing in the lineage will reappear. And that could be people, like nobody ever talks about Grandpa. Grandpa ran off with his secretary, and Grandma's like, we're never talking about him again. So the idea that someone in our lineage loses their place on a soul level is very wrong. It's very wrong. It's everyone has to have a place. All the good people, all the quote-unquote bad people, all the emotions and sensations have to be felt. And again, when they're not, when something is not integrated from our line, then the pattern gets passed down. And maybe some people, like the black sheeps, will carry it. All the liberals are like, oh, liberalism is right, and conservatism, being establishment banker, is wrong. So in other words, they're denying half of the human experience, right? The human experience is very wide. So they have all these liberals, and like you mentioned, right, they're going to give birth to a little banker son because he's carrying the stuff that they won't face and talk about. Now, if the liberal family is totally open, like choose whatever path you want, we respect all paths, this is how we live life, this is what's important to us, now this child is free and they can choose their own path. But when this one energetic has been denied or suppressed, someone will carry it. So, yeah.
So it seems like our personal souls and then these collectives of our family, basically, it's all just looking for healing. Whether it's
movement, I would even say wholeness, a movement just towards wholeness. Right? So
basically all of these cries for help are things that are going askew in our life, that, the only person somebody can date ends up being an alcoholic after their father was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then just that has that vibration, right? And it's just looking for this reintegration of this pattern.
And I believe on that lens, like if the person can resolve with their alcoholic father, they're going to stop pulling in alcoholic partners, right? It's almost like the love towards the alcoholic partner is an aborted attempt at loving dad. It's like, I can't express my love for dad openly because it's so painful, but I can show dad in a way that I love him by dating people like him. right? It's crazy. It's crazy. It's so different.
And in that example, would you have to do more constellations because dad became an alcoholic because of a lineage for something else up the line?
That's a good point. Sometimes the work is directly with dad as far as we set up the process, but sometimes we have to go back to the original trauma because there's some other bigger trauma in play. There's a reason why dad went to alcohol, and it's something he didn't get from his parents. Now, maybe that was his father, or maybe that was even farther back, his grandfather. But somewhere energetically, there's a piece that he is connected to that is marginalizing his ability to cope. And so sometimes we go back to the origination trauma and are able to energetically look at that and integrate and resolve that. And for some reason, just frees up the line. So there's just like this flow of positive energy coming down rather than this flow of toxic energy.
So would you see a shift, like say somebody was working on their relationship with their alcoholic father and that brought them down to an original trauma, would their brother and sister and brother, the other siblings in the family, would they also experience a shift in their lives or relationships?
Yeah. My experience is it's almost like there's a family energetic field. It's like a spoke. And if like a spoke on a bicycle tire. And if that spoke moves 2 inches, or the hub moves 2 inches, we've done the work, we move 2 inches, all the other spokes shift. It's not to say that it's going to be all perfect by any stretch, but it definitely, I've had so many stories where someone does a constellation around mom, they haven't talked to mom in 2 years, and then a week later, mom out of the blue calls them and says, hey, I really want to work on our relationship. Yeah, you were going to say something. What were you going to?
I was just going to say if the spoke moved 2 inches, that would really throw a tire off.
Oh yeah, it does. It does. And hopefully the square tire still functions. But it seems to. This seems like the tire readjusts also.
Well, and I personally I see things very dimensionally. So to me, it would even though a tire is third dimensional, it's still almost in a flat plane instead of having this like other, more third dimensional relationship that also kind of webs out into other things. Like, I think of fascia, connective tissue, how it, it kind of just branches out and it's all connected. You can kind of touch one area and it'll have resonance through that entire field. And that's kind of, I understood morphogenetic field, but when I think about it in relationship to fascia is almost like a third dimensional expression of how energy moves through a morphogenetic field in some ways, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So who are the right clients? Like who is the kind of people that come get you? Are they all like woo-woo, spiritual? Do they have to believe in past lives and energy?
No, I think there seems to be, my belief, right? There's an intelligence that we're working with, and that intelligence knows exactly what's right for the client. It knows my aptitudes and the ways that I can work with this particular person. Do they have to believe it? No, but I will say most of the clients that I draw do have a very strong spiritual side. I particularly don't draw a lot of the very linear, non-spiritual, non-belief in God. I could work and support them, no question. It's just not who's drawn to work with me. What I do like to see though is interesting. Here's my diagnosis of us, trauma, behavior, childhood.
Yeah.
When you and I have worked on something, a pattern for 20 or 30 years, and we still haven't resolved it, something else is going on. Something else is going on. And for me, that's energetics.
So like, can you give me an example? Tell me a story.
Well, I had a shift with my mother. I had a shift with my mother. And I had done a bunch of constellations around my mom, but this one shift was so absolutely dramatic. Like my entire psyche or energy, right, multidimensional energy level below that, shifted. And in this constellation for the first time, because the bond with my mother was pretty shattered. It was pretty broken in childhood. Grandmother and all sorts of pieces in play, and like many people, right, with a broken bond, and the broken bond is the loss of this energetic connection. And I did one particular constellation, and in this constellation process, energetically, we were able to recreate the bond with my mom in a way that felt safe, because up to that point, connecting with my mom would bring up almost like a trauma response in the nervous system, a contraction, because mom would take energy. Mom was an energy taker. And she would take energy from me even as a little boy, right? And doing the constellation and energetically, I was just ready. And the representatives for myself and for my mother came into connection for the first time energetically. And from that time forward, I've literally never had a negative thought towards my mother. Now, my mother's passed, but from that moment of that constellation forward, I've never had a negative thought about my mom. And it's not spiritual bypass. It's not to deny it, because I had negative thoughts for 30, 40 years. But it's just that something happened in that moment, and it's like, wow, my mother and I are good. And I just had nothing but loving, positive vibe towards her since then. So what a shift, right?
What a shift.
Yeah.
It sounds so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that one's always stand in my mind.
Right?
Yeah.
So powerful. So there's representatives in a constellation. There's what? Sometimes 10?
Usually I work with about 10, yeah.
10 different people that play different roles. So
yes.
If I were your client, I wouldn't be playing myself. There'd be a representative of me.
Right.
In a certain circumstance, in relationship to something else or someone else. Is that right?
There would be a representative for you in the field, which is cool because it takes you out, so you get to watch from the outside as an outsider. And one of the interesting things is it kind of validates our experience. We're like, yeah, that is the way I felt about mom. Yeah, that is the way I felt about dad. And there's something deeply, soulfully being seen in that moment. Yeah.
When I do my work, there's times like, if I'm working on a concussion, for instance, there's 8 emotions that happen in a millisecond that are just stacked on top of each other. You know, there's a shock, and then just a collapse of sadness, and then another aspect that says you can't collapse. You have to, you're weak you're weak for some kind, and so then you react to that, and you get frozen, and then you get really thinking, right? And when I do concussion work, we kind of witness each of those layers as they went into the system, and again, never got integrated. It was just happened so fast, and it was 1, 2, 3. And it's similar to what you're saying. It's almost like just having that somebody be to witness in that process of witnessing you and your space. It creates a healing in and of itself. Yes.
And I like the concussion example for a couple of reasons. I don't know if you've ever gone back with a concussion, and if you want to bring in the concept of past lives. And what we might see, have a concussion, I always have head injuries. Head injuries are consistent in at a car accident and that. And then we see in a past life that they were killed. And the death was a head injury. And so, but in some way for that soul, it wasn't resolved in that lifetime. And so they've carried the imprint in this lifetime. So sometimes we could see that in the work, or perhaps even in your work. What we might find is they have a strong energetic connection to grandpa, who they've never even met. And yet grandpa died from a head injury. And so it's like they're recreating grandpa's trauma.
Which could also be both their grandfather and them in some senses, because they could have come in as their grandfather.
Yeah, multiple. From holotropic breathwork, one of the work that I used to work with quite a bit, not anymore. They talked about condensed experiences, coexes, Stan Groff, and his concept of that was like the person always had issues around their throat, choking like they choked on food, etc. And then you go back to their birth experience. In their birth experience, they had the umbilical cord wrapped around their neck. But then you go a step farther back, and they had a past life where they were hung. Right? And so energetically, they're carrying that with them. Again, this idea of us as energy, so much bigger than just our childhood story and trauma, right? That we carry the energetics of these patterns. So when we work energetically, when we work with an energetic modality, which I know you do, you know, in your one-on-one work at that level, it's a whole different level of healing. We're not just talking about something. I know so many people that have talked about their problems in therapy for 10, 20 years, and they still have them. They still have them. It's because the energetic imprint is still in place, but they're working at this level. But they're not able to address. Some psychotherapies more and more, right, are working energetically, which is beautiful. Super helpful, somatic experiencing. Yeah.
And that's from a science place. It shows, and my work does show up energetic, but from a science place, it's a lot more backed by treating nerves, listening to the pulses of blood vessels, and then just.
But let me ask you that: listening to the pulses of blood vessels. But how much of that is truly listening to a pulse physically, and how much of it is intuitive?
I'm
sure it's both, right?
It's hard to say how much you can actually feel, because technically you can really only feel skin, right?
Sure.
How am I possibly going to feel a blood vessel? I can feel how it pulses, right? But how it pulses, it almost sends out I've been thinking, this is my recent thoughts. It sends out a frequency, right? And so that frequency of that trauma can have its own little mixture of chemicals. This pocket of trauma that's stuck, that has whatever mixture of stress hormones and proteins that get kind of encapsulated in that moment, that feed into that neural vascular play, right? And when I feel into that, it's almost like it's like an EKG, but a third dimensional one that expresses the difference between an anxiety that feels like stage fright, which is a very different anxiety than I'm scared of cats, which is a very different anxiety than my nervous system doesn't shut off and I've got heavy metals in my system and now there's just a constant buzz and I can't downregulate no matter what I do. Those are all anxiety, but they feel very, very different in the system, and the story that they tell is very different. And there is weird stuff. Like I was just working on a gal who it was a trauma response into her kidney that was rotating her ribs. And I was holding on to it. I was like, this is the kind of autonomic nervous response that gives you gross smelling sweat. And she was like, really? That's so weird. I just had that. It was like really oily, weird sweat that just happened. How I knew that it was like that piece, I can't explain how there is a gross smelling sweat receptor or some kind of toxicity that specifically makes it come out as weird smelling sweat.
Yes.
That piece I can't explain.
And from this or from others, can we include intuition of something like that in the healing process? You know, can we admit, whether science can or cannot prove it, although I think they can, they've done so many experiments around our ability to feel or know things that we don't know, but how does that play from our lens as people who work with clients? Like, I think for me, developing and fine-tuning my intuition has been super relevant to being able to help people.
Well, that's what I'm wondering too, is so we have this, 10 people in a constellation playing different roles, but it seems like the role of the facilitator is kind of a crucial one.
Yes. I feel like I'm a puzzle.
Or am I like making it a bigger deal than it actually is?
I feel like I'm a puzzle master in a way. Like my gift is being able to see patterns that you and I live with, or the client lives with, relative to their family system. So I'm very attuned to being able to see what those patterns are, or how we may carry someone's depression or rage, or why we struggle financially over and over and over again. And so basically I'm receiving information. There's some way that these people that take on the roles and act out these roles are able to feel what it feels like to be grandma, feel what it feels like to be grandpa, feel what it feels like to be alcoholism or depression in this family. And from all of that information from the other side, we're able to create these shifts, right? Energetic shifts. And also, again, give the person this kind of a soul level story of why this family, why this childhood, et cetera, to free us up. And yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I got a little lost on my thinking right there. So turn ping pong back over to you. What was that
So
going?
do you think that the people that do best with this, or that are most attracted to this, already kind of have an understanding that there's more going on? I mean, I think one of the things that is so unique about family constellation work compared to other work is that it's really deeply accepting of the fact that there are energies that are in regular influence of us at any one moment. And you create this container that looks at all of these different layers, all of these different people, and how they're interacting, and giving it a possibility and an opportunity to be witnessed. And in that process of being witnessed, we get to reintegrate and almost heal just by observing with love and compassion.
Yeah, that's a beautiful aspect of it. Yes. Yeah.
And do people need one session of family constellation? Is this something people do for a couple of years? I mean, you've been doing it for a while as a facilitator.
I have, yes. Yeah. It can be a one-time event. Now, when I'm working with someone, I'm working for about 2 hours.
Wow.
Energetically with them, with their energetic field, with their family system.
And 10 other people.
And 10 other people. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons it's so powerful, is because the group energy, group dynamics can create a greater than the whole energy. So some people use constellations just work one-on-one. I'm not drawn to it, because I just think the energetic potency of 10 people doing the process all at once creates greater and more powerful shifts.
Is there something special about that number 10?
No, I'm usually working online now, so it's actually more the Zoom dynamic of I like to stay connected with everybody, and I don't like groups where people are just observing from the outside. I really like to create the connections when we come together. I think we're missing so much of connection, and so I try to build the connections of my groups, and 10 just feels like a good number where we can know one another and stay relational. Yeah, and know what's going on for each person. So here's another interesting thing, and we haven't brought this in, but the question is, why would people even come to this event? If I'm working with one person, let's say I'm working with Joe, why are 10 people going to come and support Joe, right? Well, they don't know Joe. Sorry. You don't know Jack. But amazingly, coincidentally, people are drawn to the event. It'll be an event that's close to their own family. It'll be an event that is close to. So if people feel the draw, they're like, no, there's medicine for me. So people come as representatives, what we call reps in the field, and they get chosen for roles that are close to their own family system. So you get your own shifts. We get our own, from taking on mom or dad or grandma or grandpa. We get our own insights. We get compassion because we've walked in someone else's shoes. So it's really a group space where everybody, always hope everybody gets benefit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds powerful.
Yeah, and I like the number 10 just because I like creating the connections where we really know one another. Because I think we're missing that in our current social structures.
And you're about to start, what, a 7-month class?
Yeah. Training facilitators. So that starts in a week. And it's basically taking these people through all the stages of growth, learning, to support people in the process. And so there's a lot of personal work in that training, and there's also a lot of skill building, intuition.
That's a skill you can build, intuition?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
like
No question.
What are some of the things that you guys teach to start facilitating that?
I remember someone asked me once. So one of the first exercises we set up, mm-hmm. and you and I could do it right here, for example, is, okay, I'm going to be Jack. Would you, Daphne, take on the role of my intuition? And you say yes, and you perhaps would stand, and you would feel aspects in your body that would clue you in to how it feels to be intuition around me. And just from this, we would get a lot of insights. Like maybe you would show up and you're open armed, you're right here. But what I noticed in my body as I'm confronting you is like, oh, I'm afraid of you. Like I feel I'm withdrawing. Like I don't, and what comes up for me is a lack of trust. I don't know if I can trust you. So even from this very simple exercise, we're able to start to work on the energetics of why am I blocked around trusting my intuition? Oh, because mother was blocked and her parents shut down her intuition. Right? And so the energetic pattern that got passed down with don't trust this. That's very cool. Simple. That's the very first exercise we set up in the training.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah.
People must just like blossom.
It's an incredible growth 7 months. I think it's probably for many of them the most profound 7-month period they'll have in their lives. Wow. Of growth and evolution and healing and skill building, becoming stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what kind of skills are you building for them to get stronger through this process?
Intuition is one. Energetically, the cat is visiting again. Energetically, how to hold a group space and stay energetic, like the spokes of the wheel, to stay energetically connected to 10, 12 different people. That's actually an energetic muscle that everybody can develop if they want to. I think one of the most interesting and most challenging things with constellation work is, as a facilitator, how to stay present to the fact that we are leading an energetic process in front of a group of people. And to be intuitive with that, we have to be in a space of not knowing. And so many times when we're presenting to a group or we're presenting to an audience, we know our material. We know our subject. We're competent. We've practiced. And so we have a structure, what we're going to talk about. When we step into the field with constellation work, what we're stepping into is, I don't know. But there's a greater intelligence that's going to show us. So to sit in front with I don't know in front of a group of people and hold that space is a very interesting and challenging muscle to grow into. That's one of the most intricate of constellations.
Do you think anybody could be a representative?
Yes.
Like even the person that doesn't believe in energy?
Usually yes. And what I find is they're chosen for the role of, oh yeah, grandpa was complete atheist. Like he never believed in anything. That's the role they get picked for.
Of course.
You know, so even that, it's like, well, I don't feel anything. Of course, that's exactly how grandpa was. It's quite amazing.
You gotta laugh. It just makes you
amazing.
laugh. Because it's just, there is a degree of, harmonics to everything.
Yeah.
That just kind of this is like a fun way to be able to visualize and externalize this harmonics. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, are you the only teacher or teaching this upcoming class, or you have other people you're working with?
I have 2 assistants, former students, and they're assisting me in holding that space.
Neat.
And so the 3 of us have that container together.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. What are the people that get into this work? What are they like?
Healers, psychotherapists. Generally, they're people that are drawn towards helping others heal faster. So that maybe they've practiced their art, maybe they've practiced psychotherapy for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're not seeing the rapid change that they want for their clients, and know that there must be something more. There must be a way, and that's what's always been the draw to me, is like, we don't have time right now as a society. We need to heal very fast. And so I've always been drawn to the tools that help us heal as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And with limited cost. Most people don't have the tremendous money that psychotherapy takes. You know, a year of psychotherapy is going to be, $5,000 to $10,000. Mm-hmm. They can't afford it. So how can we heal quickly, rapidly, and have big impact? So people that are drawn to having bigger impact for their clients, also people who have a spiritual slant on life. Like spirituality is important to them. Perhaps they have a personal practice, but they definitely are attuned to this idea of us as spiritual beings. So I think those are the 2 biggest things: spiritual and wanting just to bring more impact for their clients. Mm-hmm. Much quicker.
How do you run a constellation with only one person?
You would actually place mats on the floor. Some people do like a tabletop, like if we have the checkers, the squares on this, and you could have a salt shaker here and a pepper shaker here and the napkin holder here. And I could say, hey, Daphne, could you choose one of these to represent your dad? And you might place it right here. Can you choose one to represent your mother? And you may place her over here, but the mother faces this direction. And then I ask you, put a finger on your mother and just notice what happens in your body. So energetically, we can still tune into the family field or the person's personal trauma.
The person involved with this situation, when it's a group of 10, is a little bit more of an observer. Whereas when it's one person, they're more
active. Yeah.
More active.
Yeah.
So each person, they're kind of playing the representative for that role.
Yes. Yeah.
That seems like a big shift.
It is. It is, but some people can't do a group process. Some clients are going to come and they're not going to want to bring their personal work in front of a group. And they just like, I need more safety than that. Okay, great. And so a facilitator may work with them in a one-on-one setting. And some facilitators may not like holding the group space anyway. And one-on-one is much more comfortable for them, feels better for them. They want that more personal one-on-one connection. So, yeah, both work. Both are powerful.
Do you teach both?
Supports. In the training, I do, but what I actually do is have people that work with it directly one-on-one come in and do presentations and demonstrations, so they get that experience of it.
Because you specialize more in groups.
I specialize in groups. Yeah, that's where my forte is. It's what lights me up. Yeah. The challenge of holding that is requires me to be on my best, and I love that.
You do.
I love being challenged.
You do. You get so excited when you get kind of, because it takes you in this unique way that you never would expect, right?
Yeah, it's always on it. 3/4 of the time, I'm very surprised by what shows up. It's like what neither the client or I expected. Yeah.
And it just lights you up.
Yeah. It's the mystery. The mystery is the mystery of life, the mystery of what we are as souls. Transcending this kind of human thing that's going on right now is so interesting. I mean, as souls, it's so fascinating. When we say past lifetimes of positive and negative and all of that, and we've carried that in, now we're having this perfect soul experience. Why did we choose this mom? Why did we choose this dad? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Wow. So, do you teach as well as practice?
Yes. Yes, it's more. I'm more going in the direction of teaching.
Okay.
I'm actually moving slightly different away from healing, quote unquote, quite as much, to more evolving our consciousness. So how can we use the energetics of this field, this group space, to support you and I in evolving our consciousness? Like, what is blocked for me around raising my vibration, for example, not just healing my mom trauma, but actually raising my conscious identity as a soul or as a cosmic being. So that's something that's fascinating me right now.
And is that evolution that you're taking personally, is that a reflection of you've done enough of your own healing within yourself and your community that now the next evolution is not just how to not be fucked up, but how to actually thrive?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Yeah, I would definitely say so, yes.
Do you think it's timely that you're having this time to shift things up while there's so much chaos and shift happening in the global stage?
Shift happens, yes. I would say absolutely. I believe that what humanity needs right now, healing is relevant. It's super important. But I believe, more importantly, at least for me, what I'm drawn to is raising our consciousness, raising the evolution of humanity to transcend the sort of human dramas. I know for me personally, like seeing myself as a soul or as a cosmic being has really shifted how I view what's going on in humanity right now. And so I'm much more at peace. I'm not trying to avoid the pain. I'm not trying to bypass what's going on in our societies. But I just see it from a different lens, and I feel just so much more peaceful about it, and that in some meta way, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
No, I actually really believe it. There is such a profound evolution in understanding of letting go of old patterns, and there's so much death of how we used to be in our society, and that kind of has to die in a lot of ways.
And death is painful. It's painful to let go.
It can be, until you hear the stories of people that have passed over and they're like, why did you bring me back? That was the most love, the most acceptance I've ever felt in my entire life. And so there's just energy that just keeps transforming, right? It just keeps evolving. Mm-hmm. And it seems like we just need to, we're on this precipice of either extinction or mass consciousness awakening, maybe both simultaneously. And it's kind of a fascinating time. Mm-hmm. And it seems like
it is a fascinating time.
It seems like your work is part of that. You know, this idea of healing generational past karma, of stories, of patterns, just lightens the load, allows you to be more present, allows creation to be easier in flow, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and coming back to what you had said earlier, like, yes, the reason why I'm going more towards helping humans evolve consciousness is because, I've done enough trauma work. I've done enough work in my own pain, and that I think the step for me is also evolving my own consciousness. So learning how to do that, through this group process is really relevant to me right now. And as humans, to me, what an amazing time to be alive, as you mentioned, which is humans can go in one of maybe a myriad of directions, but certainly two obvious ones, which is sort of trauma, pain, destruction, or evolving humanity, where we actually raise our consciousness and our vibration, right? So that we, and that just sounds so beautiful to me. Right, this idea not to avoid the pain and the trauma, but just the beauty of what we are as souls, right? As souls within a family, but as a soul with many lifetimes and many myriad experiences, maybe even lifetimes on other planets. How amazing is that to see ourselves from this different lens? Yeah, it's fascinating.
So much we don't know.
Yeah, there's so much we don't know. We know, like,
so
maybe
much
this much. Oh man. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
But it does feel like there's a lot of pleasure for me in the questioning and the appreciation of what I don't know. And the more I just am able to surrender into that unknowing, the less I care to know, because the more I feel like I'm connected, kind of paradoxically.
Yeah, I like that. The thought of being the connection to the other side, connection to divine. Like, can we walk through that life day to day with a felt sense of our connection to the spiritual? Can we walk through day to day with connection, a felt sense of our lineage also, right? And then I think we show up so much stronger in life and with the earth. Can we walk through every day with a sense of connection, energetic bond to the earth? And then I have a feeling that with those three being the kind of the big ones, we're so much stronger when we're facing life in the human experience. We can manifest our dreams. But we got to have the resources, right? We got to have the resources of our lineage behind us, healthy. That's an energetic thing. And sometimes we are receiving energies that are toxic because the lineage is very toxic. And so what flows into us is a bit destabilizing. And so some people have to even cut off from the lineage for a while to thrive and survive. But eventually we have to go back and clean it up. Otherwise we're going to be limited in life.
It makes me think a lot about like soil and compost, and if there's pesticides sprayed for a long time, there's so much toxicity that the soil that the ground is in is so dead now. And we have to like heal that soil, because ultimately if we're alive and we're healing, we're creating this mycelial network of consciousness around this planet of healthy vibrations, this fossil network where we're kind of pinging information from one another. And if we're not healed from our past, in the same way that we're not healed from toxicity in our food line, that's going to affect our cells and is there a play between?
What I think that's a great example, and I think that's where if people want to do multiple family constellations, which is basically the energetic process of cleaning up the energetics of the patterns that we carry, right? Can we clean up the energies of the patterns we carry? And so I think that's where multiple constellations, because I feel like every time we do the process, we are bringing more light, more health, more resilience to the lineage just by us doing our work. And I think that the more we do that, I believe it ripples out, again, the spoke, not just helping us, but helping siblings or even kids, grandkids, that come down the lineage in front of us. So we're cleaning up that soil bit by bit. Maybe we have to take the plant out a little bit, right? Leave for the family. But we have to go back and cultivate and clean and purify and detoxify the soil, because eventually that plant needs that soil. That's the soil it was born in. And that's the soil, when it's clean and healthy, it's going to do its best in. It's going to grow these big, beautiful heirloom tomatoes, right? And we clean that up, and then the tomato goes forward and nourishes us or nourishes someone else. A great descriptor.
Well, and I have this sense that as we do our personal work of cleaning up our past, that changes our frequency, which will affect the actual environment that we're in. Not just our lives, not just the lives of our family or our family lineage, but it will, ultimately affect things like the soil and the plants and the earth and how we're taking care of it. When we learn to take care of self, and that comes as a path of cleaning up your past, right? You start taking better care of the environment around you. You're more cognizant of all aspects of health and love and caretaking, right? Yeah,
I mean, if we're in toxic soil, we're going to produce toxic fruit in some way. And as we do our personal work, clean up our soil, what we have to offer humanity, our relationships, our business that we're trying to create, becomes so much more potent, so much stronger, and we can rise so much higher, relevant to what we want to bring to the world. Maybe that's just being a loving mom, You know, but our ability to do that is so much stronger when we take care of our roots. We take care of our roots, you know, back here. And again, then I would add sometimes past lives will come into play, et cetera, more dimensions of what we are as humans. Yeah.
Jack, I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you today.
Yeah.
I love all the places that it went. It brings me a lot of hope for the world to know that you're out there doing this work and that people are finding you and finding this work. You know, there's so many wonderful ways to heal.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your work with Family Constellations today.
Great. Yeah. And if anyone has any questions, thank you. You can reach out to you, of course, to get to me. But Google, you know, just simply Google Family Constellations or the founder of the work, Bert Hellinger, or myself. I have videos on, you know, YouTube and my website, healingfamilytrauma.com. But it's all about the energetics and the lineage and the ancestry and the patterns we carry. And so I think this knowledge can really help us, especially when we realize, oh, I've been stuck for 10, 20 years. It's because there's another level. So, yeah, I hope it's helpful. Yeah, so thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. And thank you guys for joining us. There's so many ways to heal, but at the end of the day, curiosity and love can heal most everything. I think it can actually heal everything. A little curiosity and love. Thanks.
If this content resonates with you, be sure to give it a like and subscribe, and share this video with your loved ones. Speaking of your loved ones, if you know of an amazing healer, teacher, or facilitator that would be a good fit for the show, or you know someone who has an amazing story of healing that will help inspire others, please connect us. You can find my email below, along with the links to YouTube, TikTok,